again, the UK records the highest number of COVID deaths in a 24-hour period as the pressure on hospitals reaches new levels.
We've got patients on the 3rd floor, 4th floor.
This ward goes all the way around to the other side. It's 29 patients.
6th floor, 7th floor, 8th floor.
Another COVID patient in here.
9th floor.
We meet more staff and patients at the Royal London Hospital, sharing their powerful testimony of life in the pandemic.
How do you ever prepare for people just dying and dying and dying? You know, although it's our job and we deal with dead people every day, this level, I think, is taking its toll.
It's the second of our special reports from the Royal London. We're also in Washington on the eve of the presidential inauguration. Joe Biden was in tears as he left his home state, paying tribute to his late son, as the president tried to define his own legacy.
I stand before you truly proud of what we have achieved together. We did what we came here to do, and so much more.
And in this leaving video, Donald Trump says he is praying for the success of the new administration, but he won't attend the inauguration, and he still hasn't conceded defeat.
Preparations are being made as Storm Christoph is set to bring extreme rainfall to the UK, with parts of Wales, Midlands and north of England set to suffer. And Leicester have been taking on Chelsea in a bid to go top of the Premier League.
And coming up in sport on BBC News, more on
Good evening. The United Kingdom has recorded the highest number of COVID deaths in a 24-hour period since the pandemic struck last year at more than 1,600. Experts say it's likely that the coming weeks will see figures even higher than this. But they also point out that the number of new infections is falling and the number of vaccinations continues to rise. Well, that news will offer some much-needed hope to NHS staff throughout the UK. The Faculty of Intensive Care Medicine says that many hospitals are now overwhelmed, with some staff almost on their knees after many months of treating desperately ill patients. And that is certainly the distressing reality of life at the Royal London Hospital. And tonight, in the second of his special reports, Clive Myrie discovers the heavy price being paid by both staff and patients.
The birth of a new day brings a familiar demon. More COVID infections and more death. And it's others who must stare into the abyss to spare our eyes.
I'm sorry.
Like Hannah, a senior mortician at the Royal London Hospital, part of a small team of just 5 that's handled hundreds of bodies in this pandemic.
How do you ever prepare for people just dying and dying and dying? You know, although it's our job and we deal with dead people every day, this level, I think, is taking its toll.
Does it feel like a conveyor belt?
It does in a way, yeah. And I hate to say that because I hate to think of it like that, but yeah, it is almost, yeah.
That's what the pandemic's done. I mean, it's no one's fault.
No. Sorry. I've done this for years, you know. I'm just, when someone says to you, how does it make you feel when you're saying how it makes you feel? Well, yeah, this is how it makes me feel.
The inner turbulence revealed. And yet outer strength is what we crave, a brave face in those fighting the virus on our behalf. As every day the hospitals fill up, including the Royal London.
How many floors are taken up by COVID patients here?
We've got patients on the 3rd floor, 4th floor.
This ward goes all the way around to the other side. It's 29 patients.
6th floor, 7th floor, 8th floor.
Another COVID patient in here.
9th floor.
Another one in here.
10th, 11th.
Again, round to the other side. That's another 29 patients.
12th, 13th.
This is our 3rd ward with 31 patients.
And then obviously up here,
Each 4 of these 4-bedded bays contain COVID patients.
the 14th and the 15th floors, so that's 12 floors in total.
12 out of 15 floors, more than 400 patients, and there aren't enough staff. It's madness. And curiously, despite all the drugs and fancy equipment, the simple technique of periodically turning over a COVID patient or proning can help force oxygen into scarred lungs. But the manpower needed is immense, turning and turning and turning again, day after day. And in the middle of the storm, consultant Mari Healy.
Yeah, it's fairly urgent.
A commanding presence.
Yes, still coming. Go, go, go. All right, that's your first day.
And a friend to all.
What would I have done without you today?
For those less scrupulous about social distancing and wearing masks, she gives the benefit of the doubt, despite the effect on the NHS.
I think the public want to do the right thing, but I don't feel they understand fully the scale of the problem. So I don't feel taken for granted. We don't.
So you think the public don't get the pressure that is on everyone working in this hospital and up and down the country?
I definitely don't think they do, because I think if they did, they really wouldn't hesitate to do the right thing.
Back on the ward, the oxygen levels plummet of a COVID patient in their mid-20s. Proning must be quick, but more specialist care may be necessary to oxygenate the blood through an artificial lung. Consultant PJ Zolfagari, who predicted a second coronavirus wave, calls Papworth Hospital in Cambridge to see if they'll take the patient.
Ventilation has become very difficult again just now.
As Kathy McGloin leads the team, trying to keep her alive. But there's bad news.
So you're full, is that right?
Now the pressure's really on, but quiet professionalism kicks in.
Not too good. The breathing is not great. The breathing. Okay, yeah, good.
Relief. Enough oxygen is now finally reaching the patient's lungs. And yet Kathy isn't an intensive care doctor. She's a consultant anaesthetist, offering a helping hand like the trauma surgeons, paediatricians, immunologists, all mucking in during this appalling COVID crisis.
I feel a lot better now.
How worried were you?
I'm sweating, and it's not just the PPE. So, I mean, she's young, she's someone's relative. This is something precious that we're holding and we're trying to do. Yeah, it's quite frightening.
Frightening. One word that defines COVID's second wave for the NHS. Heartbreaking is another. As Mari Healy checks on a 28-year-old man with no underlying conditions, but who's been on a ventilator for more than 3 weeks.
Obviously very distressing, and this is a very serious complication at this stage. He's also got other family members in critical care as we speak.
Time to call his wife.
Now, I know he is quite sick. He could die from this, by the way. I'm sorry to have to say that. I know, love. I know. I know. Don't worry. We're doing everything we can for him. Very difficult because this poor family have been through a huge amount, and they're actually so nice that makes it more difficult.
The inner turbulence revealed. The rain mirrors Shamima's recent tears for her family.
So that's him there.
She took Mari's call as her husband fights for his life. His condition remains serious on life support. Clive Myrie, BBC News.
And that's the reality of the pandemic for staff and patients at the Royal London. That was Clive Myrie reporting, with camera journalist David McElveen and producer Sam Peranti. Let's have a look then at the latest government figures out today. There were 33,355 new coronavirus infections recorded in the latest 24-hour period. And that means that the average number of new cases reported per day in the past week is 43,257. It is continuing to fall at this point. Hospitals have had an average of 37,946 COVID patients in the week to last Sunday. As we mentioned, 1,610 deaths have been reported. That's people who died within 28 days of a positive COVID test. On average in the past week, 1,181 deaths were announced every day. The total number of deaths so far across the UK is 91,470. Let's also go through the latest figures here on the UK's programme of vaccination to see where we are. 204,076 people have had their first dose of one of the 3 approved vaccines in the latest 24-hour period, and that takes the overall number of people who've had their first vaccination in the UK to more than 4.2 million. So having seen the figures, let's talk to our medical editor, Fergus Walsh, who's with me. Can we talk about the number of deaths that we've been reporting today?
Yes, terrible figures, Hugh. You saw in Clive's report the appalling impact that the pandemic is now having at hospitals in London. But I can tell you that it's the same across almost all of the UK. The hospitals I visit, and you saw it in that report, the pressure on staff, they're shell-shocked, they're drained. They've been doing this now for nearly a year. There are almost 38,000 COVID patients in UK hospitals. That's 16,000 more than at the peak last April. And all this at the busiest time of the year for the NHS. Now, COVID cases, as you said, are beginning to come down, but it'll take a couple of weeks for that to feed into a reduction in deaths. But even once we pass the peak, we've really got to expect a long and hard struggle through winter.
Can we talk as well about the whole issue of resistance to the virus in its various forms? People talk a lot about the antibodies. What can we say about that today?
OK, so there are new figures from the Office for National Statistics looking at how many people have previously had a coronavirus infection and built up antibodies, which should give them some protection for several months. Now, if we look at the latest study for December, it's estimated that 1 in 8 people in England had antibodies to coronavirus, 1 in 10 in Wales, 1 in 11 in Scotland, and 1 in 13 in Northern Ireland, around double the levels in October. Now, it's just a snapshot, a point in time, and many who had coronavirus in the first wave nearly a year ago, they may still have some immune defences, but their antibody levels won't show up anymore. But one positive, in the weeks and months ahead, Hugh, we will see a huge rise in antibody levels in the protection from the population in people who've had a vaccine.
OK, Fergus, thanks very much once again. Fergus Walsh there, our medical editor. Let's move on to today's other main story, because Donald Trump is spending his last full day as President of the United States before Joe Biden is sworn in tomorrow as the nation's 46th president. But in a break with tradition, Mr. Trump will not be attending his successor's inauguration, and he's decided to fly to his resort in Florida sometime in the morning. Thousands of soldiers have been deployed around Washington, D.C. in the biggest security operation ever seen for a presidential inauguration, as much of the U.S. Capitol is, of course, being protected. That's the home of American democracy. It's been fenced off following the riot by Mr. Trump's supporters a fortnight ago. And so on the eve of that inauguration, let's join our North America editor, John Sopel, who's in Washington.
Hugh, it's been a presidency that has defied all convention, and why should it end any differently? Joe Biden has now arrived in Washington, D.C. a few moments ago, and he's going to spend the night just across the street from the White House. But Donald Trump and Mr. Biden will not meet. Instead, tomorrow morning, Donald Trump will be up early. He's awarded himself a military parade at Andrews Air Force Base, and then the inauguration without Donald Trump will take place. Just a mark of how bitter relations have become between the president and the vice president, Mike Pence has decided that he will skip the Donald Trump leaving do, but attend Joe Biden's inauguration. Where once a sea of faces would greet the incoming president as he stood on the Capitol steps, tomorrow it will be flags, thousands and thousands of stars and stripes. This is partly about COVID, but even more so now about security. The entire National Mall, which stretches for 2 miles, has been closed off. Washington, D.C. has been transformed into a fortress with 25,000 National Guardsmen drafted in. Razor wire and fencing everywhere. Now nearly 2 weeks on from the storming of Congress by a mob incited by Donald Trump.
We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
The shock in America over that attempt to overthrow a fair and free election seems to deepen with each passing day, not dissipate, and Washington has become a city on edge. The last time the president was seen in public was a week ago when he went to the border wall, something he'd point to as one of his achievements from the 4 years in office. But it will be his behaviour since the election that will be his lasting legacy. The most audacious and unexpected foreign policy move came when Donald Trump flew to Singapore to meet his North Korean counterpart, Kim Jong-un. The meeting diffused tensions but has done nothing to slow North Korea's nuclear programme. Here, Donald Trump's election plans were upended by the COVID outbreak and the damage it did to the US economy. Coronavirus didn't cost him the election, but his erratic handling of it and occasionally bizarre statements didn't help him.
And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection?
And just a little later, America was convulsed by the death of George Floyd at the hands of a white policeman. Amid the protests and rioting, Donald Trump saw an opportunity to present himself as the tough president of law and order. Tonight, he's issued a farewell video.
This week, we inaugurate a new administration and pray for its success in keeping America safe and prosperous.
But there's still no concession that he lost. And now impeached twice, it will be what's happened in America since the presidential election that Donald Trump will likely be remembered for. He still faces a tricky Senate trial, with the influential Republican leader, once a firm supporter, piling in.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people.
But from tomorrow, the focus will be on Joe Biden, today leaving Wilmington, Delaware for the last time before he's sworn in.
Well, excuse the emotion, but when I die, Delaware will be written on my heart.
There'll be a flurry of announcements and actions in his first days in office. But perhaps the overriding goal will be to lower the political temperature and bring a fractured nation together. It'll be a Herculean task. And today, in Donald Trump's final day in office, the grim death toll from coronavirus passed 400,000. It's going to be one of the biggest challenges that Joe Biden faces when he takes over, to improve the rollout of vaccines, to get more people to wear masks, as our correspondent Nick Bryant reports. And I should say, his report does contain flashing images.
We normally associate New York with the self-confidence of America. But the coronavirus crisis has shown us the frailties of the world's most powerful land. In the final weeks of the Trump presidency, there have been days where more than 4,000 Americans have died, a higher death toll than on September the 11th.
It's bizarre, it's scary, it's frightening.
Angelina Proyer lost her father.
They're not in the same reality. I mean,
her mourning made more painful by family members who refused to believe the coronavirus took his life. She's angry at Donald Trump for spreading misinformation and downplaying the pandemic.
Furious, angry, confused, disconnected, abandoned. Those are all ways to describe how I feel. There are 350,000 plus people have died, and it doesn't seem like any of those people matter. I mean, it's insane.
We've seen queues for COVID testing, we've seen queues for COVID aid, but there's hope at the end of this line of medical staff and teachers. A school gym that only weeks ago served as a polling station has now become a vaccine hub.
And done.
Much to the relief of New Yorkers such as Michelle Kleinbaum, a teacher on the educational front lines.
I've been working in person pretty much since the beginning, and it just feels like a weight's been lifted off my shoulders that I can go back now with a different peace of mind.
Joe Biden has set the goal of 100 million doses in the first 100 days of his presidency. And despite concerns about vaccine supply, here we witnessed a can-do spirit that's so emphatically American.
There's been so much despondency in this city for the past 10 months, but this is really the turning point.
I believe it will be the turning point. We're going to get New York City back up and running in no time.
A little bit more spread out. Give yourself 6 feet. Give yourself 6 feet.
This isn't just a health crisis, it's been an economic catastrophe. And in the city that never sleeps, we're seeing food banks now having to open 24 hours a day. Joe Biden is promising an almost $2 trillion rescue package.
The challenge is enormous. The crisis is huge. But America is strong. And I believe and I'm hopeful that the president could turn things around.
There'll be talk of a new day in America, but will the Biden presidency really be a panacea? The politics of this country are so sickly, the divisions are so deep. The coronavirus has revealed so many American ailments. Nick Brown, BBC News, New York.
And undoubtedly there will be a lot of talk tomorrow about a new era starting in America. And of course that's true to a certain extent. There'll be a new occupant in the White House. But the problems that Joe Biden inherits don't just disappear with the 46th president starting his term. And you can tell that by the security that we can see behind me that's had to be put in place following the bitterly contested election, the division, the 74 million people who voted for Donald Trump, who still may feel that they need some convincing. And I think that is going to be the focus of Joe Biden's inaugural address, that this is a time of grave national peril for the United States of America, and that it is time for the people to come together. The words will be powerful, but delivering it is going to be an uphill struggle that will probably determine the success or failure of the Biden era. Hugh.
John, we'll be back with you in Washington tomorrow. Thank you very much. John Sopel there, our North America editor. Well, let's have a little more then on the main story tonight and the pandemic. In the first week of January, nearly a quarter of all COVID-related deaths in England and Wales were among care home residents, and that's according to the latest data from the Office for National Statistics. Since the start of the pandemic in March of last year, just over 25,000 care home residents with COVID have died across the UK. Our social affairs correspondent, Alison Holt, has more details.
The routines they hope will keep COVID-19 at bay, spraying, cleaning, the careful donning and doffing of protective equipment, all now part of everyday life here at Each Step Blakely, a dementia home in Greater Manchester. In the first wave of the pandemic, they lost 9 residents to the virus. Now they have a second outbreak.
Scary. We did it the first time, the first wave, and coming to work, it was so scary. You know, hopefully we won't have it as bad as last time.
So far, only 2 people here are showing symptoms and some in the home have had vaccinations. But across England and Wales, care homes are now seeing a significant rise in COVID-related deaths.
We've put walk-through booths into our homes that disinfect you as you go in and out of the building. But, you know, there's a feeling that if it gets into a home, there's very little you can do. And you've just got to hope that the therapies and the treatments that are available in hospital might allow more people to survive and come back.
Today's official figures record deaths of care home residents registered in England and Wales in the first week of January. It includes 1,370 residents who died in care homes or in hospital with COVID-19 a factor. It may include some registrations delayed over the new year, but that accounts for 23% of all COVID-related deaths for the week. And remember, care home residents represent less than 1% of the population.
She was so smiley, everybody loved her, couldn't do enough for people.
Among those who died was 97-year-old Beatrice Jones. She was in a Kent nursing home not too far from her daughter, but part of the heartbreak is that they've seen so little of each other in the last 10 months.
I just feel the virus has robbed me of that, a complete year of my mother, when I could have gone down and seen her, because I used to go down there 2 and 3 times a week at one time.
The hope lies with the vaccine. This Nottinghamshire care home, where there's a small outbreak, had a new arrival from hospital soon after residents had their jabs and before the vaccinations could be fully effective.
The person who came from the hospital wasn't vaccinated and they're very poorly at this moment in time. However, all our residents were offered the vaccination on New Year's Eve. So our other resident who has tested positive but has had the vaccination is not poorly whatsoever.
Many care staff are still traumatised by losing so many residents in the first wave. Now they find themselves in a race between the virus and vaccinations. Alison Holt, BBC News.
The Deputy Chief Medical Officer for England has suggested there could be a regional approach to reopening the country's schools. Dr Jenny Harris told MPs that schools in areas with high COVID infection rates were likely to stay closed for longer. Ministers say that more than 800,000 laptops and tablets have been supplied to support home learning. But as our education correspondent Elaine Dunkley reports, some schools are still waiting for their devices to arrive.
We've got 400 altogether.
At Rainville Academy in Leeds, classes are full. Some children at school because they can't get online at home.
We were dealing with parents who were struggling with devices and then the free school meals and the hampers and the vouchers.
A child can attend school if one parent is a key worker or if they're classed as vulnerable. The government has also expanded the offer of a school place to children who lack devices for remote learning or a space at home, which means 30 additional children at this school.
We've got families with 3, 4, 5 siblings, all trying to get around 1 or 2 devices. I could have done with double the amount easily because of the type of families that we've got here. We need to make sure that we're equipped to deal with everything that we need to do and that we've got the technology and the training.
50%.
In England, the government has issued 800,000 laptops to schools, but it's still short of its 1.3 million target.
Brilliant, good luck.
Donna and Lucas have struggled. They've recently been given a device, but most of their remote learning has been done without a laptop.
It was really difficult because I was having to use my mobile phone, because obviously I was having to have phone calls as well and stuff, and obviously your battery dies quicker on a mobile. The laptop now is helping to keep his education going, not obviously the standards of the teachers, but the best of my ability that I can give him at home so he doesn't miss out on any more education.
5 times as many children are in school compared to the last lockdown, which has raised concerns amongst teachers about the spread of COVID. At this secondary in Oldham, there are other issues around attendance. Currently, only 70% of students are online during lessons, and the head teacher is worried.
A number of our students would be classified as disadvantaged, and that means that they're open to higher risks, whether it be from child sexual exploitation or involvement in county lines gangs. It's our business to make sure we know where they are and do everything we can to give them the opportunity to engage in learning, because it not only helps them, but keeps them safe.
Supporting disadvantaged children at home is a big challenge, and so is how to reopen schools safely.
I think the key message here is I know everybody wants very certain planning and dates for opening and closing. Unfortunately, that's not how the virus works. I think it's likely that we will have some sort of regional separation of intervention.
The digital divide is widening the disadvantage gap, and with uncertainty over when schools will open, there's growing concern about the education and welfare of children left without devices. Elaine Dunkley, BBC News.
In Scotland, lockdown restrictions have been extended until at least the middle of February, with most schools and nurseries to remain shut until then. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said although coronavirus case numbers seem to be declining, any relaxation could send the situation into reverse. Former Conservative Prime Minister Theresa May has accused her successor Boris Johnson of abandoning what she called Britain's position of global moral leadership. Writing in the Daily Mail to mark the inauguration of US President Joe Biden, she criticised Mr Johnson for failing to honour British values when he threatened to break international law during the Brexit trade talks. It's understood the government's emergency committee, COBRA, has met to discuss the risks of flooding, with major incidents declared in South Yorkshire and Greater Manchester as Storm Christoph is set to bring extreme rainfall to regions of the UK. Parts of Wales are expected to see around 200 millimetres of rain, with 150 millimetres in the north of England. Amber weather warnings have been declared in the Yorkshire and Humber, northwest of England, East Midlands and the east of England. Our correspondent Danny Savage reports from the Yorkshire town of Doncaster.
In Doncaster this afternoon, people were doing what they could to get their homes ready for flooding. Council lorries were out clearing drains and gullies just in case. In these streets close to the town centre, they don't want a repeat of this, when the nearby River Don burst its banks back in 2019.
Well, in the garden, up to about here, in the house, it was roughly a foot high.
In that same street today, Kev Wingfield admitted he's worried.
Devastating to the whole community. Right, yeah, we've got to go through it all again. But this time, the council are better prepared, which is a good thing. But it gets everybody worried, and everybody's now started to move things upstairs again.
The sandbags are already out in anticipation of flooding. A major incident has been declared in South Yorkshire. Last time people complained about a lack of preparation. Brothers Adam and John have seen it all before.
I've seen up here when it was really bad. If it's anything like that, if they think it's going to be anything like that, I'm definitely concerned, because there were people up to their necks in it. People having to swim out of their houses, and that's not really something I'd want to have to deal with.
In West Yorkshire, anxiety is high in the Calder Valley around Hebden Bridge, an area damaged so many times before by flooding.
It's going to be devastating. If it's anything like it was in February, it's going to be really devastating, yeah.
The concerns of the local residents, especially the ones that have flooded before, is, oh, here we go again. And yeah, unfortunately, that's one of the things of living in a valley bottom, but we can try and do whatever we can to minimise the effects of flooding.
Further afield, heavy rain has been causing problems in Leicestershire, where it was a lottery whether or not you got through this road. Danny Savage, BBC News.
Some football news then, and Leicester City were hoping to go top of the Premier League table as they faced Chelsea earlier tonight. Our sports correspondent Andy Swiss was watching.
In this tightest of title races, would it be Leicester's turn to rise to the top? Beat Chelsea and they'd lead the way, and they couldn't have asked for a much better start. Wilfred Ndidi certainly enjoyed it, Leicester ahead in a flash of brilliance. And just before the break, it was 2-0. Chelsea dithered, James Maddison didn't, and the Foxes could sense that Premier League summit. And the second half soon brought them more chances. James Justin really should have put Leicester out of sight, as Chelsea struggled for any real spark, with the exception of their keeper's reflexes. Edouard Mendy sparing them a heavier defeat. 2-0 though was enough for Leicester to go top of the table, and 5 years after they famously won the title in this strange season, well, you just never know. Andy Swiss, BBC News.
And that's it now, BBC One. It's time for the news where you are. Have a good night.